Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Coach Johnson's YouTube channel, where we talk about the power raid, the air raid, organization as an offensive coach, as a head coach, program building. So thanks again for tuning in. Please start subscribing. I was checking out the analytics and got a lot of watch hours and stuff by people that haven't subscribed. So hey, please subscribe. It helps out with analytics. It helps out with getting the channel out there, and would really greatly appreciate to get all those people that are not subscribed to get them subscribed. So I would definitely appreciate that, and thanks for sharing it with any of your other coaching buddies and all that good stuff. Just trying to get out there and help everybody out. Sending things off for free and all that good stuff that I can help with coaches. But please subscribe if you haven't. I would definitely appreciate that. But also going into summer workouts, continue to work on a little bit of organizational type stuff. And so today what we're talking about, I did this presentation before at a clinic, and also I've done it on Coach Tatum, which go check out his YouTube channel. Just killing it. But this is about the game planning checklist and how we as a staff start breaking down opponents and getting it organized so that we can have the most success on game day. So kind of starting that off with our presentation, but right now, so this is the Twitter, if you don't have my Twitter right there, and then this is our Green Hope one that we're doing this year. So we just started it back up. So this is going to be offensive game planning. All right, so the first thing that we kind of talk about is kind of that structure. That's why I kind of broke it down, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then talking about the other things when you're watching film. So one of the things that I like to do is maybe the first couple times is try to get the information, depending on how many different films you get, different games, and I like to break it down, try to find games that will have to do with a little bit of what we do on offense that gives the kind of same visualization, so we can see what the defensive structure is and what their rules are. So we kind of start at each level. So defensive front, are they a 3-man, all right, 4-man, 5-man front, so then what are their techniques? So is it going to be with that 3-man, is it going to end up having a stand-up backer to make it a 4-man front? Are they going to bring both backers down and create a 5 down? So like, what are their tendencies with that? What percentage are they staying 3? And then kind of going with that 3 is, is it the 4 eyes, 4 eyes, 0, 4 eye, and then are they going to stay, 5, 0, 5, all that good stuff. So just try and see what the tendencies are for their defensive front, because then it comes down into that linebacker level. All right, so when it's a 4-man, is it a 4-2-5? Are they playing a legit 4-4, or are they playing a 4-4 with only 3 DBs in there? And is one of them not a linebacker and it's a hybrid? What are they trying to do with their second level, and where are they playing? Then if it's 3-man front, are they stacking them? Or is it a traditional 3-4? And then if they go with the 5 down with the 2 backers, what are their tendencies are? Are they responsible for certain gaps, or do they have a free hitter? And that's what we kind of break down with the linebacker level. Then we go to the DBs is, getting into, nickel dime, get into what is their base. Do they play based off of, do they have a boundary corner and a field corner, or do they switch it based on their strength and weakness? How many safeties do they have out there? What's their hybrid? What levels are they playing at? All that good stuff. And we'll get into even more of the depth. This is kind of just our checklist of once we get going, I like to do everything by pen and paper, but I also will use the breakdown that we can with our data, and then get into the whole defensive structure. Are they a field boundary? And then where are they playing in certain field zones? So as I'm watching through there, I'll try to track this data, but I also am trying to watch it for fast pace, and then watching it as a whole, which comes down to the next part is, what are their blitzes? What big plays have happened against them, and I'll chart that. What are the formations that they struggle with those big plays? What are the formations that they are in? Why did it happen? Was it running into the field? Was it running into the boundary? Where did that other team put their strengths to make that big play happen? How they set it up? Then the next one is like tempo and subs. Is this a team that, they're subbing at certain times? Could you catch them with tempo and get those free 5 yards? Because it's something that we like to do. And then once again, it's like once you kind of chart all that, is then I go into the flow and the aggressiveness. We'll get into it, is how is their pursuit angles? How aggressive when it comes to their players, are they fulfilling their role and their technique and their assignments, or they kind of just, they're playing fast, like with their hair on the fire, and there's a chance to hit them with like a pop or hit them with a reverse, some type of misdirection, and then how disciplined are they? And then breaking it down, the last thing that we'll do is like the first 10 or 15 to try and set up so that we can get the answers to all of the questions that we have on here on our checklist. And also, with the way that our system, we have a lot of times that, we'll get a different front or a different defensive structure because of how successful we've been and the different things that we do. So it's one of those things of, this is the checklist, trying to go in and make sure the kids are prepared for the best thing, because we'll give them this scouting report. So now the next couple of clips are going to be or pages are going to be talking about the different levels. So like when we go into the defensive line, we already had a checklist is how many, what's their structure, all that. And then it's going to be their techniques and how does the defensive coordinator align, what shades, what gaps are they willing to give up on the D line? And then what are they doing with their run strength tendencies? Are they putting their strength towards opposite of the running back, which a lot of people do against spread offenses and against ours, or are they going to be putting it with the tight end or the H? Because we also have had teams that they will do it because we run buck, that they will go into an under front with our tight end because they know that we're to try and cause a little bit of a problem with that. So they'll put their shade to our tight end and our H-back, and they'll have their linebackers being able to flow over top. So that's one of the things that we'll take a look at. And then we've had teams where they're going to put their strength of their D-line is going to be into the boundary because they figure that a lot of people that they have faced possibly, they're trying to go out to the field. And so that's one of the things that they're going to try and take that boundary away and make everybody flow to the field and be able to siphon everybody up through the middle. So it's one of those things that once you start realizing, hey, how are they lining up? And then also like what stunts and all that good stuff. So it's one of those things of, we'll break that down, and our O-line coach will be the one that will take a look at that, and he'll break that down and give us kind of a checklist of, hey, this is what we saw between the film, and as we start putting the structure together as a coaching staff. And then we'll break down the best worst player. This is a big one because, as you know, as all spread, anybody that runs option is, if you can't block them, you got to read them. And so that's one of the things for our best thing is for us to know is, hey, who is their best and their worst guy? Who do we want to run at? Do they have different strengths? Do they have different technique that we can take advantage of? So it's one of those things of, especially like if you're getting to a 3-man front, is like, hey, is it the nose? Do we need to read him, or is it one of the 4 eyes? And so it's one of those things of, knowing who your best worst player is. There a way that you can get your best on their worst, and making sure that they can't get their best on your worst? And are they trying to hide somebody? And is it somebody that we can run to and advantageous to of having a tight end or an H-back type of situation? So that's what we do for our defensive line scouting breakdown. Like I said, the O-line coach will do that as we break down each level. We continue. Our next thing that we'll talk about is our linebacker level. And so what we'll do is, this will also be kind of our O-line and also our running back coach kind of breaking this down, because it will help with like knowing the different blitzes that they might be coming, so that the O-line coach will be ready to go to be able to do that. But we'll talk about, once again, how many and what's the defensive structures, what's their gap responsibility, do they have any free hitters, who's going to be the +1 in the box, how many are they willing to leave us in the box in certain formations, and then a big one is when we go with an extra guy in there, are they going to put the backer to apex, or are they going to bring the backer inside the box, because that'll help us then with our rules with the blocking scheme, and do we need to make certain calls based on what they're going to do with their defense. And then another one is the best and worst player. Once again, you're going to hear us say that because, sometimes you don't have the Jimmys and Joes of just outmatching people at each level. But for a linebacker, are they hiding somebody? Is it going to be at the middle? We've had teams that were just like, hey, they put all their speed to the outside to stop teams that they've been facing. And they had a middle linebacker. We're just like, all right, we're gonna attack them, and we're gonna try and hit our inside run as much as we possibly could. And we just felt like if we had used our H or our tight end, getting that extra body in there and running our quarterback, because those extra blockers was really advantageous for us, because that's where they were hiding their worst player on the defense, not just at the level. But then it's also with that alignment technique and what they're doing, lining up, to what strength, the passing strength, or to the run strength, or to the field, to to the boundary? Or how are they apexing? Are they going to stay tight to the line of scrimmage? How can you use their alignments, their techniques, and their structure and their rules against them with what you do well and what we do well? So that's our next thing that we'll kind of break down. Then, do they give it away when they blitz? Do they give it away when they're running certain coverages or certain scrape exchanges, that type of stuff? And so it's one of those things that really watch it, break it down, find teams that do the similar stuff to what we do to be able to match that and have a good setup and putting that data with what the D line does. So the next one we'll talk about is kind of how the secondary and the third level structure is. So here we are for the third level, and this is where receiver coach, quarterback coach, which is me, is going to be breaking down. And so how many guys are they playing with? And what coverages are they running? And when do they run it? Is it based off of down distance? Is it based off of what formation you're presenting? And then one of the big ones that we've had is what do they have their best corner travel? Do their DBs travel based on field and boundary? Do they do it off of strength? And so that's one of the things is trying to figure that out. And then for us with, being an RPO and a pre-snap type of team of our quarterbacks is, are there a certain technique in depth? Are they playing different leverages? How can we take advantage of that? And then one big one that, especially we see it every week, every day with our defenses, are they stemming, or are they kind of like toying around and bluffing with how far off they're going to play? Or are they bluffing when they're playing man? And then one of the big ones that we like to figure out is when are they going to go to man? When do they want to play man? Because we have our man beaters that we feel really good about. And if we can anticipate when they're going to be going with a blitz and playing straight man coverage, hey, can we get something that hits it quick? And then what do we do, and what's our answers for that? And then once again, we kind of break it down their best, worst player. One of the things that I always watch is their zone and man turns, and their how are they good with their hips? Are they a little bit slower reacting to outside cuts? Are they slower to the inside cuts? Because that will really help, especially with the route concepts that we'll run. Do we have a way that we can get that boundary corner? Maybe he has terrible hips when it comes down to he's getting out of his alignment and getting out of his stance, and he struggles to anything in breaking. Well, then we have a couple of things that we can do with the in breaking. Are they struggling without breaking because he breaks down and his hips open up super wide, so we can take advantage of just that split second? So that's something we like looking at. And then safeties. Are they good covering the middle of the field? Are they good at getting over to the sidelines and to the hash and the numbers? Because if they're not, then we'll hit that area. So just trying to see what they struggle at and trying to be really good with what we do. So then the next thing is kind of putting it all together, their defensive structure. So one thing that we talked about is will they put their run strength or will they put their strength to stopping the run opposite of the running back, or does everything tie in? Because there's been times where the rules and how they did it is that it just sometimes the defense might not have been on the same page, because if you're putting a formation into the boundary and your run strength to the field, if there's teams that are saying that they're a field coverage, or that they're how they're setting it up is two different ways, then you might be able to get that advantage of, hey, you put your formation into the boundary. Well, they're going to keep their DBs to the field because they're willing to give up that boundary, but then they're setting their run strength based off of yours. And so if you're going with your pass strength and formation strength into the boundary, and they're staying field to everything, you're going to have a really good night running to the boundary. And if they over adjust and now everything's into the boundary, you can hit them to the field. So it's one of those things of just understanding what their defensive structure is. Will they change? How do they handle those type of situation? And then and one of the big ones is, when do they turn into the man coverage? Is it just going to be red zone? Is it going to be third down? It's going to be fourth down. Does that mean that they're going to be blitzing? What does that look like? How many guys are they going to have? Are they going to have a safety over top to play a cover one? Are they going to have those linebackers stay even more down, and they're going to be trying to bump and run and pressing, and then the safeties are running with them? How are they handling that, and what kind of man coverage are they playing? And then once again, going to the pass strength is, how is it? Are they going to match us to the strength or to the field? Are going to match us to the boundary? And then what we'll do with that is how do they handle their motion? Are they smooth with their motion? Are they going to banjo it? How do they roll off of a safety? Off of their safeties when we go any type of jet motion. What's going to happen when we go 3-by-1 to 2-by-2, 2-by-2, 3-by-1? What's going to happen when we go man? So all those different checks and how many checks do they have for bunches? How many checks do they have for stacks? And then all the different ways that we can get into that. So that's stuff that we'll take a look at for their defensive structure. All right. So our next 2 slides is putting it all together and started working on what now you could use against them after you got the structure, is watching that film and breaking down what they are struggling with or what has hit against them, and then start making your list. So this is the big plays and formations against them. What we'll do is we'll chart the run schemes and the pass schemes that they've struggled with. But it's also doing that, and that's why I'm putting this on the same slide, is does the run scheme or pass schemes that they're giving up, is it because of the ways that teams are either setting up or the way that they're aligning with their formations? And so we'll chart those of like, hey, anything that's been, +5, because that's a, +5 is a big time, gain in the run game, and pass game will be at like 10. And we'll start charting those, and then also obviously having a list for big plays. So, a 50, I like to go 15 plus on a run and pass like 20, 25 plus, and then also any type of touchdowns. So we'll chart those. What formations were they in? Why did that formation give it a problem? Why did that play work? Was it just bad tackling? Or was it just off of alignment assignment and execution off the offense, or bad by the defense? And why were they out of position? Did they put somebody into a struggle, into a disadvantage that they just couldn't come back from it? So we'll do that chart, our run, our pass schemes. What was it? And then kind of going down to that is, what plays do we have that are similar to the plays that they've been struggling with? Either it's like a run fit or something with their DBs or the coverage that they're playing and getting caught in, what is working against them. And then obviously kind of with that is we already have an idea of what coverages and when that we want to run certain things. And then if we're seeing that, hey, well, something that we do and that very well, and that's something that they're giving up, we already know that, hey, that's something that we really need to take a look at. And then we'll build our sheet off of what coverages that they run, and then when they're running a certain coverage, what have they given up, and then what do we run against that coverage. So then going into the formations, what formations are they not aligning to? It could be into the boundary or to the field, or are they struggling with certain splits? What formations are they giving things up? That if is there a formation that teams are sitting in and just constantly, pound the ball, or being able to run out of, spread formations, or when they're adding, an H-back, a tight end, when they're going heavy type stuff, what is the formations that they're struggling with, unbalanced, empty, any of that type stuff? And that's something that we'll take a look at. And then what plays were people hitting off of that? And then obviously with the big plays. And then another thing that we'll take a look at with those plays and those formations is, is there something that we can put in conflict? And is other teams doing that? And then is there certain things that, hey, they're overlined in certain ways that, hey, we think that we could possibly, hit a trick play or something misdirection. And then once again, it's matching what personnel or formations that we run, or that's in our system that maybe we haven't shown them, or something that we believe that we can come out in and have a lot of success with because of what they've struggled with. Then we'll also take a look at that. And so we'll gather all that information up. And now kind of going to the next slide is then we'll start scripting our first 10, 15 plays and our openers. Are there certain things that we want to get going into it? And then we'll also build our play call sheet, which I'll show you that as well. So one of the first things is, how can we get all of our playmakers involved? Who are your guys? What in your system, no matter what week it is, what opponent is, you try to get them the ball. And how can you do it creatively and do it maybe, with a little bit different window dressing or a different type of scheme or concept to get them involved early and often. All right, what matchups do you like? Is there outside receiver on their corner that you like? Do you have a good left side versus a bad left side for them? Is your O-line versus their D-line not even, is that just a huge advantage for you? Take advantage of that. Are there linebackers smaller, or what matchups do you like for your offense? Then we'll go into plays that were run well against their weaknesses. Once again, we kind of talked about that, and then formations that we run versus ones that we saw on film that they struggle with. And then at the end of the day, with all that, but what is your bread and butter, and knowing your offense, on your players and how to get them involved. And so now when you're going with what they've struggled with, what you're doing with, and you putting it all together, it really helps when you're scripting your first 10, 15, and also your openers. And then kind of going along with that is, is there a way that you can run plays that you've in your system that you hadn't yet, that maybe it's time to unleash that? Or is there some type of misdirection or trick plays you want to come out in, and or like for us is like I like to try and come into a different unbalanced or different type of empty or a stack or a bunch that people haven't seen, and I want to get that information early to try and organize the information and all the data that we're going to need for later in the game. So that's kind of what we're trying to do with our first 10 and 15. And one of the other things that we try to do with our kind of openers or P and 10 or, coming onto the drive is maybe having one or two plays that, instead of having to signal or call it in, that we kind of go on the whiteboard and let the guys know, hey, this is what we're running, and we'll gather before we go out on the field, so that we can really have that, nice and organized starting off of a drive and being successful, because we've seen that they've struggled with these situations or these plays or formations. So that's how we'll script our first 10 and 15. And then I'll give you a little glimpse at what we do for our play call sheet here now. All right, so here we are in our play call sheet. And one of the things that you'll see is that we have a beginning script in our P and 10. So maybe one of the things that, with us is we want to see how they line up in a 2x2. All right, and then you get your 3x1. Maybe you want to come out in a stack, so a formation with a stack, okay, and then bunch, and then you want to see formation into the boundary, okay, and this is all just off of formations. And then maybe you just want to throw in there is maybe your run game is you want to see a jet motion, how do they line up to that. You want to see, an unbalanced look. Then, one of the things is maybe now you want to start getting into plays. So you want to see how they're fitting up, GT. And then, and then another one is how are they handling a quarterback run. And then maybe play 10 is one of those things of where you're going now into a motion of either 2x2 to 3x1, or the other way around and going 3x1 to 2x2. And so it's one of those things of setting up your beginning script off of formations and being able to get information that you feel like you can run anything. Maybe you're running like stick here and snag there, and just trying to do your bread and butter that you feel good, but also getting information on how they're going to play you. And then your P and 10 is one of those of like maybe you're setting something up, and it's one of those things of you have all this space to kind of get a very lengthy play call in, but since you're coming right off the sidelines to it, you're ready to go. So we'll have 10 of those, and we'll have it to our right and left. We'll put reminders on there, and then there's your type of situational stuff that we kind of talked about with breaking down data and how they are going to handle your red zone. And then here's your empty formations, like which ones are you going to carry into there, your unbalanced based on what you saw, what two point. And so that's how we kind of have it all organized. And then based off what they're seeing or what you're seeing is what are the beaters against different coverages that you're seeing that you can take advantage of. And then if you're an RPO team, it's like, hey, 1, 2, 3 receivers. What are they giving up in your film? So anyways, this is the game planning video of how we do it, how we break down our checklist. Didn't get into all of it. Like I said, might do a part 2 where we're talking about, situational stuff is like, what do we like against them? Red zone, how are they handling all that stuff? And then also, getting into, the blitzes and how you're going to take advantage of that, what screens, and then you're kind of talking about how you would relay that information on scouting report to a player. So might be a part 2 of this, but like I said, I just want to do this game planning one because I really enjoyed it when I did it at the clinic and got a lot of feedback and questions, and just want to be able to share this. And if anybody wants this presentation and they can copy and paste this to make it easier into their template, I'd be happy to send that out. just hit me up on Twitter and I'll send that out. But also, I did it with Coach Tatum, and just one of those. I mean, he's one of those guys that kind of even helps me with this and gave me a couple of ideas. And I've talked to a couple other coaches on Twitter, so it's one of those things of game planning. Everybody does it a little bit differently, and it's one you just want to keep getting better, because you want to be start off really hot, which I feel like we always start off really hot. Even this past year, we scored on most of our first drives, and then we just struggled when it came to making the adjustments and all that stuff, So been very successful. Like the year before at Northwood, we scored on every one of our opening drives, and had 1 or 2 big plays, because I feel like we're putting all that work in to be able to have success, and the kids know what to expect. So anyways, really hope that everybody's enjoying the content. Please, like I said, subscribe. Don't just watch and not subscribe. And also, when you subscribe, it's also going to give you notification whenever I post something, which I try to do every Sunday, Monday. Try to give people a great way to start off their week. But hope everybody's doing well, and thank you again for watching another video of mine.